You cannot spend decades rejecting Black America, calling us lazy, separating yourself from our struggle, and then act surprised when we finally say enough is enough and focus on our own liberation. Assalamu alaikum, I am Sista Samilah, and today we are going to have a conversation that many people do not want to have, but it is necessary, it is overdue, and it is rooted in truth. We are going to talk about the fractured relationship between Black Americans and our brothers and sisters from the African and Caribbean diaspora, and why Black America has every right to delineate, to focus on our own interests, and to stop being the cavalry for people who have spent generations disrespecting us, distancing themselves from us, and actively working against our collective advancement. Now, before the usual suspects start screaming about division and Pan-Africanism, let me be abundantly clear. Black Americans have always had a Pan-African mindset. We were raised to support Black people everywhere. When Africans were fighting for independence from colonial powers, Black Americans were in the streets protesting, fundraising, and advocating. When Caribbean nations were struggling economically, Black Americans opened our arms and our communities. When immigrants from the diaspora came to this country seeking opportunity, it was Black Americans who had fought for the civil rights that made their immigration possible in the first place. We marched, we bled, we died so that the 1965 Immigration Act could be passed, opening doors that had been closed to non-European immigrants for decades. We did all of that with love, with solidarity, with a genuine belief that we were all connected by our African roots and our shared experience of anti-Black racism. But here is the painful truth that we must confront. That love, that solidarity, that Pan-African vision was not reciprocated. When African and Caribbean immigrants came to America, many of them did not want to unify with us. They separated themselves. They aligned with white supremacy. They looked down on us. They called us lazy, uneducated, violent, and uncivilized. They created derogatory terms like Akata and Jarir to distinguish themselves from us, as if our Blackness was something inferior, something to be avoided. Let me break down what those terms mean for those who are unfamiliar. Akata is a Yoruba word that some Nigerians and other West Africans use to refer to Black Americans, and it carries a deeply insulting connotation. It suggests that we are wild, uncultured, and disconnected from African identity. Jarir is a Somali term used to describe people with softer hair texture, and it has historically been used as a slur against Bantu and other groups, including Black Americans. These are not terms of endearment. These are terms of disrespect, and they reflect a mindset that sees Black Americans as beneath other Black people in the diaspora. For decades, we watched as immigrants from Africa and the Caribbean came to this country and immediately distanced themselves from us. They told their children, do not act like those Black Americans, do not talk like them, do not dress like them, do not associate with them. They opened businesses in our neighborhoods but refused to hire us. They moved into our communities but refused to engage with our struggles. They benefited from the civil rights victories that we had fought for, but they looked down on us as if we were the problem, as if our oppression was our fault. And here is where it gets even more insidious. Some members of the diaspora actively work to undermine Black American economic and political power. We have seen cases where African and Caribbean immigrants have devised schemes to get Black Americans fired from jobs so they could bring their own people in. They create hiring networks that exclude us. They use their positions in management to push us out and replace us with immigrants from their home countries. This is not solidarity. This is tribalism, and it is a betrayal of the very Pan-African principles that Black Americans have always tried to uphold. We have also seen what happens when members of the diaspora get into positions of political power. Do they look out for Black people as a whole? No. They look out for their specific ethnic group. They funnel resources to their communities while ignoring the needs of Black Americans. They use their platforms to advocate for immigration reform that benefits their people while remaining silent on issues like reparations, police brutality, and systemic racism that disproportionately affect Black Americans. They treat politics as a zero-sum game where helping us means losing something for themselves, and that is fundamentally anti-Black. Fast forward to 2025, and Black America has finally said enough. We have delineated. We have drawn a line in the sand and said, we are going to focus on our own advancement, our own economic empowerment, our own political power. And now, suddenly, people from the diaspora are upset. They are talking about division. They are accusing us of being anti-African. They are saying that we have abandoned Pan-Africanism. But let me ask you this. Where was this concern for unity when you were calling us Akata? Where was this solidarity when you were telling your children not to associate with us? Where was this Pan-African spirit when you were siding with white supremacy to distinguish yourself from us? The truth is, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot spend decades rejecting Black America, distancing yourself from our struggle, and actively working against our interests, and then turn around and demand that we continue to show up for you when anti-Black racism comes knocking at your door. Those days are over. We are tired of being the cavalry. We are tired of running to the rescue of people who have never reciprocated that energy. We are tired of prioritizing Pan-African unity when that unity has always been one-sided. Now, let me address the Muslim dimension of this issue because it is particularly troubling. Islam teaches us that all believers are brothers and sisters, that we are one ummah, one community. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said in his final sermon, "All mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor does a non-Arab have any superiority over an Arab. A white person has no superiority over a Black person, nor does a Black person have any superiority over a white person except by piety and good action." This is a clear, unambiguous statement about equality and the rejection of racial superiority. And yet, many Muslims from Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia who come to America have participated in the very anti-Black American behavior that I have been describing. They have looked down on us. They have excluded us from their businesses and social circles. They have perpetuated stereotypes about us being lazy, violent, and inferior. They have aligned themselves with whiteness, hoping that their foreignness or their religion will shield them from anti-Black racism, not realizing that in America, Black is Black, and white supremacy does not care about your passport or your prayer beads. This behavior is not just un-Islamic, it is a violation of the most basic principles of our faith. When you discriminate against someone because of their ethnicity, when you look down on someone because of where they were born, when you refuse to support someone's struggle for justice because they are not from your tribe, you are engaging in asabiya, tribalism, which the Prophet Muhammad explicitly condemned. He said, "He is not one of us who calls for asabiya or who fights for asabiya or who dies for asabiya." Tribalism is antithetical to Islam, and yet it is rampant among Muslims in the diaspora. So when Black American Muslims say that we are going to focus on our own community, when we say that we are going to prioritize our own economic and political empowerment, we are not being divisive. We are responding to decades of rejection, disrespect, and betrayal. We are saying that if you are not willing to stand with us, then you cannot expect us to stand with you. This is not about abandoning Pan-Africanism or Islamic unity. This is about recognizing that unity requires mutual respect, mutual support, and mutual sacrifice. It cannot be one-sided. Let me also say this. Delineation does not mean hatred. It does not mean that we wish harm on anyone from the diaspora. It simply means that we are focusing our energy, our resources, and our advocacy on Black Americans who have been systematically oppressed in this country for 400 years. We are saying that reparations should go to the descendants of American slaves, not to recent immigrants who have not endured that specific legacy of trauma. We are saying that affirmative action policies should prioritize Black Americans, not be used as a loophole to benefit everyone except us. We are saying that when we talk about Black empowerment, we are talking about a specific group with a specific history, and we are not going to allow that conversation to be diluted or co-opted. Now, some people will argue that this kind of thinking is divisive, that it plays into the hands of white supremacy by fragmenting Black unity. But that argument ignores the reality that unity has never truly existed. It ignores the fact that immigrants from the diaspora have been aligning with white supremacy for decades. It ignores the fact that many of them have actively worked to undermine Black American progress. You cannot guilt us into continuing a relationship that has been toxic and one-sided. You cannot demand solidarity from people you have spent generations disrespecting. If members of the diaspora want to repair this relationship, if they want to rebuild trust and solidarity, then the work has to start with them. They need to acknowledge the ways in which they have contributed to anti-Black American sentiment. They need to confront the colorism, the tribalism, and the superiority complexes that exist within their own communities. They need to actively support Black American causes, not just when it is convenient or when it benefits them, but consistently and genuinely. They need to hire Black Americans in their businesses. They need to advocate for policies that benefit Black Americans. They need to stop using us as a stepping stone while looking down on us at the same time. And for those who claim to be Muslim, they need to return to the teachings of Islam. They need to remember that the Prophet Muhammad fought against tribalism, that he elevated a formerly enslaved African man, Bilal ibn Rabah, to one of the highest positions in the Muslim community. They need to remember that Islam calls us to justice, to standing with the oppressed, to rejecting racism in all its forms. If you are a Muslim from the diaspora and you have participated in anti-Black American behavior, you need to repent. You need to seek forgiveness from Allah and from the people you have wronged. You need to change your ways. Let me be clear. Black America is not closing the door permanently. We are not saying that reconciliation is impossible, but we are saying that it has to be earned. It has to be based on genuine change, not just performative gestures. We are saying that we are no longer going to beg for solidarity from people who have shown us time and time again that they do not see us as equals. We are saying that we are going to focus on ourselves, build our own institutions, create our own economic systems, and advance our own political interests. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, if that makes some people feel slighted, then so be it. The bottom line is this: you cannot reject someone for decades and then act surprised when they finally stop seeking your approval. You cannot build your success on the backs of Black Americans and then turn around and call us lazy. You cannot benefit from our struggle and then distance yourself from our pain. Black America has woken up. We see the game for what it is. We understand that Pan-Africanism, as beautiful as it sounds, has been used to exploit us while offering nothing in return. We are done being the bigger person. We are done sacrificing our interests for the sake of a unity that has never truly existed. This is not about hatred. This is about self-respect. This is about finally prioritizing the people who have always been at the bottom, who have always been overlooked, who have always been expected to carry everyone else's burdens. Black America is delineating, and we are unapologetic about it. This is Sista Samilah reminding you that real unity requires mutual respect, and you cannot demand what you have never given.